everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Five Door Media Podcast, when it's conversation and topic of sales. That's right. As a marketing agency, we know that the quality of our leads that we're providing to home service businesses really doesn't mean anything if those leads aren't being treated well on the sales side afterwards. So that's why we're bringing you insights from the top sales professionals in the home service industry, breaking down what it takes to turn opportunities into revenue, revenue into profit, profit into freedom, and freedom into impact. Let's get into today's conversation. Today, we have another incredible guest, Matt Ricketts. As a founder of Better Life Home Cleaning, Matt has scaled his company to $5 million in annual revenue with a 35% compound growth rate, earning a spot on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing private companies in America. But he's not just building a cleaning business. He's shaping the industry, from serving on the ISSA Residential board to helping develop MaidCentral, one of the leading software platforms for the cleaning company industry. Matt has been at the forefront of innovative in-home services. Now he's taking things even further, working in an M&A to acquire and scale home cleaning businesses. Oh, and there's a little fun fact. Before diving into entrepreneurship, Matt was literally flying high as an airline pilot. But instead of navigating the skies, he's now helping home service businesses navigate growth. Matt, welcome to the show.
Drew, thanks for the intro.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for being here. How are things?
We were talking, I just got over a cold and but it was definitely a man cold. It was strong, man. I've been out for about 5 days and just getting back at it, man. It was pretty wicked. Actually, my wife has been sick for like 2 days longer than me. And this is the first time I've been sick in a couple of years, and I did not enjoy myself.
Yeah, it's not fun. I don't get sick often either. So when I do, I feel like I have the right to be a big baby about it. And and that's my mindset. But yeah, 'tis the season for cold and flu and sickness. So glad to see you're upright. So tell me, what have you been up to lately?
Oh man, the business is running well. On a personal level, just getting kids off to college, doing in that season of life, doing college visits, kind of finishing that process off now. My daughter's actually interviewing for some competitive scholarships, so we're having to kind of revisit the colleges that she's already visited and do that stuff. And on a personal level, just trying to be consistent and work on being a better leader, a better communicator. So, some skills that I am trying to develop this year are just being a better listener and hearing people without trying to solve all their problems. That's sort of my, as a business owner, we're all wired to solve problems, but I find that at this size of business, I need to be a better listener and allow other people to solve the problems and just, hear them and understand them better. So those are kind of things going on in my life.
I love that. It's really interesting. I was having a conversation with my wife, who is a co-owner in the business as well, and over the weekend, and we were talking about one of the hardest parts about being a leader is instinctively knowing when people need a leader, when they need a coach, when they need someone to push them, and then also knowing sometimes they just need a friend, and like knowing when they're needing each one of those is really hard, and that takes a lot of discernment, which could be difficult. So that's interesting. I've been having conversations about similar topics. Okay, well, today's conversation in this season that we're in with this podcast is all about the topic of sales. And the interviews and podcasts that we've recorded so far, I've asked everybody this question. Can you remember young Matt? Maybe you were known as Matty back then. I don't know.
Sure.
What was the first thing that you remember selling?
Oh man. That's a great question. I would tell you my wife has a better story for this than I do because she was kind of
It's
more.
usually the case, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like truthfully, like my wife grew up in, my family, we were entrepreneurial in the sense my dad had a medical practice and I worked, in their practice and did billing and coding and things like that. But, it was kind of a self-sale thing. Like, somebody had a problem, doctor fixed it.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, on the other hand, her family, her dad was a nurse by trade, but he was an artist for how they kind of paid for private school and did things. So she, at a very young age, has great stories of like, people coming up to their pottery booth and her being a cute kid in pigtails, selling hundreds of dollars of pottery,
It's amazing.
while her mom was off getting coffee and things like that. Um, for me, um, I think I was more on a traditional path of like technician in my role in the world of being an airline pilot, like, so learning how to sell myself and how to package myself up was probably the first really great sale I ever had, was getting my first airline job and convincing those people that I was a reasonable risk to fly 50 to 75 people around in the back of a plane. So
That makes sense. And honestly, you're not the only person that has answered that question in that way, like selling themselves and like selling their skills that they've attained. Now, I will say the risk of hiring someone to fly a plane is definitely the highest risk answer we've heard so far. Okay, so that was like the first thing you really remember selling. Is there a sale that you're most proud of?
hmm you know we had a business, that it was great to sell. We had a smoothie business. Sold it to those folks. They wanted it, you know, for themselves. They asked, to buy it, and it felt good to hand it off to somebody else. However, they did buy it during like the 2007 2008 period, so it only lasted a few more years.
Mm,
I wish I could say that they were, still in business and rocking and rolling, and that business was great. But selling a business is very personal. I can tell you, selling in the ultimate sale is selling somebody on getting them to sell you their business. I've bought a couple of other people's businesses,
yeah,
and on the flip side of it, that feels really good that they would trust you to steward their business forward. And you know I would say that's actually one of the ultimate sales, is to sell your company as the buyer of another company.
I like that. And in your bio that you sent over, you are getting more and more into like that merger and acquisition world.
Yeah.
How many of those transactions have you been a part of?
We've done two in the last year and a half, and we've learned a lot. And I think we want to start accelerating that. So that, we've gotten a couple under our belt. We built a playbook around it, especially in our industry. And there's a lot of ways these companies that residential cleaning businesses are while they're incredibly simple in a lot of ways, they're incredibly varied in the way that people have dreamed them up and what they find to be important and all the structures and things that they've built into them. So we have kind of a criteria we're looking for. We've gotten pretty specific about what we want, and we have cash to self fund a couple more deals, and then we're thinking, you know if those continue to go well, would it make sense to build a fund and grow a much larger company a lot faster, accelerating the growth, and really there's a lot of reasons to do so. Um, Not really on the track of your answer, but I'll just elaborate a little bit more, because it might be helpful to people. Is most of our businesses, we're so small, we lack resources to do the things we need to do. Like it's very rare for most home service businesses to offer good benefits, if benefits at all, right? Or these are things that are just common in big businesses that are just a line item,
Mm,
in their cogs, right? Like, for us, for example, health insurance, while expensive, $20,000 a month or something like that, it's really only like 2%, right, of our revenue at this point. So it's a smaller percentage, right? So
mm-hmm.
you're spreading out the cost of these really kind of expensive things, and so our hypothesis is that at about 5 million EBITDA, 5 million profit, you could probably get one of these businesses to about 30% net margins, is probably like the theoretical lid, which is upwards of three times better than most of the home service industry is running at, right? 10,
Mm-hmm.
12% is kind of, sometimes good for folks. And it is good if you're, but I think margin expansion, that larger multiple would also make the company worth quite a bit more, and would trade for higher multiples, which would increase, shareholder value. So if we were to do this, if we were to bring on companies, and if people wanted to participate, we'd be open to, rolling stock into the deal as well, so that they could participate in the upside as well of a program like this. So we're still thinking it through, and how to structure something like this. But I think there's a lot of benefit, especially for folks that are thinking about retiring in the next few years. Um, we're kind of targeting that group especially.
Yeah. Um, Fascinating topic, honestly. I know we were talking about how we want to do this podcast in seasons, and each season covers one topic. Like, definitely financial side of things and, mergers and acquisitions fit into that. I feel like that could be a whole podcast on its own, like really diving in, and like people that have done it or people that are interested in selling their businesses. Because like the big question is like, if you're buying, what are the things that you're looking for? And if you're selling, because like what you were saying, it's an honorable thing for someone to be like, yes, I trust you with this thing that I've put my blood, sweat, and tears into. So like, if you're buying, what are the things you're looking for? But also if you're selling, what are you looking for in a buyer? That could be a really good conversation, maybe on
Sure,
another day too. Yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
just talk about like the sale, because you have built, I mean, your company in tremendous ways, and a part of that is sales. So tell me about what's your sales philosophy? Like, how do you look at sales, and how does your company look at sales that might be a little different, than the average like cleaning business out there?
I don't know if it's any different. I'm just like a super analytical person to my own detriment.
Sure.
Like, to the point where sometimes I'm like, yeah, I got to remember that there's people behind these, and I'm like the
Hmm.
data is just data. There's like people behind all these things, especially on like, the operation side of things, where I see a number and I'm like, all right, we can do better on this number, but at what cost, right? But on the sales side of things, it's sort of, you know, top of funnel, down to the bottom. We can kind of start at top. I mean, it's just you've got to have enough leads, right? And you've got to be optimizing on every step of the way, in terms of, uh, you know every conversion. There's multiple conversion steps along the way that need to be optimized. Um, for example, right? Um, a lot of people are just throwing money at PMAX right now, which, and I know you're a
Hmm.
marketer, and maybe you like PMAX, but you don't. Um, I personally think PMAX is kind of lazy. It's kind of, what I would do, and what we do is, on the marketing side, is we try and get leads through the traditional Google PPC campaigns. If we want to do display ads, we break out display ads. If we want to do YouTube ads, we break out YouTube ads. We use each individual tool instead of
Mm.
this rolled up tool, which kind of hides. We feel like it hides results, and conglomerates data, where it's like, look, if we would have just had a display ad, that click would have cost 30 cents. Instead, we paid $2 for that click because it was all rolled in. But so first off, we're optimizing each individual campaign source, right? So Google AdWords really big for us, strong, but broken down, we're using other Google tools as well, and just have campaigns for each one. We do have one PPC, or one PMAX campaign going, which is a competitor campaign, which is basically like looking at their
Mm.
traffic, and that's just kind of an easy one, where it's just like, well, they've made that so easy that it's like, and it is lazy, where it's just like, it actually knows what traffic has been to their site, and then you can retarget that traffic. That's, you know, I don't know another tool that actually does that as well, so we'll go ahead and use that tool. But for everything else, we're kind of self building, and then we're optimizing. All right, is is the keyword right? Is the headlines, we're kind of, working on those, crafting those. We're using some of the AI tools, but we've also found, just, optimizing
Mm.
ourselves over time has been very effective. So first off, just starting off with like the basics of like, are our ad campaigns structured right? Do they look good? Do they get good click through rate, and bring people to our website? And then after that, it's sort of, all right, did that landing page convert well? Because it doesn't matter if we brought 100 leads to it, and, you know 10 of them filled out the form. That's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
We need probably almost 50% of those clicks to take an action on our site, right? So, you know, we're looking for the next optimization to be how many of them actually fill out forms, right? Give us a lead, turn into a quote, and then we're trying to improve contact rates, right? So we're optimizing how many are we contacting, and then ultimately, like, how many are we closing? And we're looking to close about 50% of all quotes. So if you look at the top of the funnel, 33% of all leads, but 50% of all quotes, roughly, I think, is what we're looking to turn into money, right? And that's sort of the thing, is that you have to optimize against every step. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty broad, but there's so many places that this can break down. Um,
Oh yeah.
and
Well,
I
what you're
see.
describing is what we call it's the five door methodology. Like what you just described, and I know like this is new for us talking about it publicly, but like we believe there are 5 doors every online consumer has to go through before they become a customer. First one is platform, right? What you described. Like, are our customers on Google enough to make it worth it? Are we on the right platform? Are more of our customers on social? First door, are on the right platform. Second door is creative. Is our creative like good enough to be stopping people in their tracks, right? Third door is targeting. Are we targeting the right people on the right platform with the right creative? Fourth door is like post click engagement. So like the forms you're talking about, the landing pages you're talking about. Is there enough information? Is there not enough information? Are we getting people to come to our website and then actually do something when they're there? And then the fifth door is sales, right? Which is really like what we're talking about today. Um, and there's so many variables that go with that sales door. It's the final countdown, the final frontier of the 5 doors is that sales process. So tell me, let's say, well, one of your leads gets all the way to door 5, right? That hey, we're on the right platform. Our creative was great. It was enough to stop them in their tracks, to be interested, to fill out a form. Our targeting was right. It's our perfect ICP. It's exactly who we want to be filling out this form. They did fill out that form. What happens then? Like, how does your sales process work when those leads start coming in?
Yeah. So if they filled out a quote, at that point, automation kicks in where it would let them know what the pricing is. It's, everything else, and it's going to text them, letting them know. It's basically going to preempt the next step, which is going to be a call. It's going to be saying, "Hey, this is, Katie from Better Life Maids. I'm about to give you a call. Just wanted to let you know, and just see if this is a good time." We have that kind of time during office hours at this point. We're not using like 24/7
Yeah.
automation yet. And I imagine that this will get there at some point. Um, I still have hesitations even for outbound calls at 1 in the morning if people really want that, right? Like,
Sure.
just because it can happen, does that what people really wanted as
Yeah.
they were scrolling in bed? Do they want to call like right then, waking up their spouse in bed? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
no, I just thought I was doing something private. But so preempting that call with a text message, and then we're gonna, make a series of,
Are you
you know,
waiting for them to respond to that text before you do the call?
No, not
Okay.
generally. We're
Okay.
just letting them. It's a courtesy, just letting them know. Like,
Yeah.
if they were to say, hey, now is not good, we'll reply like, with okay, what's some great times, but we're going to try and get them on the phone and then finish that sale. They have the opportunity to book online, and a good percentage of our sales, 25% of our sales, are
Oh wow.
the sale, finishing the sale themselves, and they can do that via a variety of ways. Like, even in the quote that's sent to them, there's a link that would allow them to finish the booking anytime on their own. Right when they're in that booking flow, they can do so. But about 25% of our sales actually self self sell or
Yeah. It's
finish.
self-service. Yeah. Booking. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know a lot of folks in the residential cleaning industry don't love that because they think that they're very, they got to get it perfect. They, get it super unique and things like that. That, like, getting across the line of communicating the value and all that stuff. But it's, to me, so much of that is done ahead of time in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like your brand, your positioning, the words on your website, your reviews, all the social proof that's out there about your company. A lot has been made up a decision is already probably made.
Mm.
And we do find that some customers, like things like how soon you can service them, are important and things like that. But a lot of customers that are getting this far picked you, right? Whether it's us or, in your instance, like they've come this far, they've kind of picked you, and you just have to give them a reason to say no, really. Like they want to say yes. So the no might be, I can't really afford this, and that's
Mm-hmm.
you can't necessarily control that unless you know want to offer financing on something that's an ongoing service like cleaning would be kind of like
Yeah.
financial suicide for people.
That's
And
debacle
probably,
to me.
yeah, yeah. So I've heard people ask, like, should we offer financing? Like, I can't imagine why. It's an ongoing
Yeah, it
it's an
seems like a
ongoing
headache.
need.
Yeah.
It's not it's not a project like an HVAC where it's like you're just putting them in debt, like
Well, I
to
mean, and either way too. I mean, usually a cleaning, maybe it's a 12-month contract, or like there's in a way it's already financing because it's broken out into monthly fee anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't have a lot of tools to kind of get over the price objective, and like a
Yeah.
lot of it is we are selling something to the top 10% of income earners in America, which is still a huge audience.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at it like this, Drew. Like this is what I think people don't really realize is like so St. Louis is about 3 million people. It's a good sized city, but there's 3 million people, but I can't sell to 3 million people.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably 10% of people, right? And if you figure, that's 300,000, and you cut that number in half for like an average household of two, there's probably 150,000 households that we can service in St. Louis, and that's it.
Yeah.
If and that's so that's probably the market, and we have about 1,250 recurring customers right now. So let's say we have 1% market share, right? That's decent, but it's so fractured. But
Mm-hmm.
it just goes to show, like, there's tons of opportunity and tons of choice, right? So that's good for consumers. Um, so they came all this way and they picked you. Is my whole point is they've seen a lot of choices. They came this far. You have to just basically move them over the line as to what the value is. And so that's strategy as much as it is anything else. What's unique about your business? What it like? I mean, if you can't clearly identify that at that point, then you probably are going to struggle a
You got
little
some
bit.
other issues too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for my company, and I'll use some words that we use in our is that, and this doesn't mean anything right off the bat, but we're consistently delightful. And what we mean by that is, right, and then so like we mean by that is that we give you people you can trust with the keys to your house,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we'll even be like, look, this is such an important decision, and we talk about this with them. Is like one of the key things we do is it takes 500 people for us to hire one person, and the people are like, that can't be true. It's like, no, like here's the funnel that we really go through. It takes over 500 applications on Indeed to get roughly 100 applications in our applicant tracking system. Of those 100, 30 of those have assessments that we will allow them to qualify to the next step. The next step would be that they complete a video interview and show us that they're interested in the job enough to complete this video
Mm.
interview. And then of those, only 10 merit further review, and we offer them an interview. Of those 10, roughly 5 schedule. And of those 5, we can probably offer a job to 1 or 2, maybe 2 if we're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty, and so like again, we're now all of that is just social proof to the concept that we're giving you people you can trust with the keys to your house, and how hard it is to find people, right? So now we're kind of expressing them how hard it really is to find somebody. Like you just pulling a name off a board in a grocery store or wherever else you found somebody that
Mm-hmm.
is not likely to yield a long-term relationship or someone that's going to clean your home and that you can really trust, again, with that level of access to your most precious possessions. And then things like that. Other parts of our strategy is obviously, um, we talk about like our cleaning processes and safe for people, pets, and the planet, right? That's kind of our language on how we identify this. Like it's just like that when we're cleaning your home, everything is going to be safe. So if a bottle spills on the floor and your dog comes and licks it up afterwards, you do not have to worry about the
Mm.
safety of your pet, right? Same thing with your kids. If they're, you still have little kids in your home. So we can, we can talk about all of these things that make us unique and different. And if that stuff doesn't really identify with them, you're not going to,
Yeah.
connect and close, right? So I think you have to be able to be like, what are your unique positioning points in the marketplace? And, and for us, the final thing is just that idea of consistently delightful is really important. So, and what we say about it is when you do service with us, like one thing we require is we require a scorecard at least every 30 days. So we tell them this, like, look, we need to know really ideally after every visit how we did. We want you to rate it as delightful, but if not, rate it how it is.
Yeah.
And your service is 100% guaranteed. Not just not just that we'll come back and clean it, but if you give us the chance to clean it and you're still not satisfied, we'll give you your money back. 100% guarantee. There is no questions asked on that. And I know a lot of other companies will do the clean back thing. It's pretty rare for a company to do a cash back guarantee. We will, because it happens so infrequently, maybe once or twice a year that somebody asks for that money back.
Mm.
More companies should, if you are good enough. And then we talk about, we have the data to prove it, right? So we have a 98.2% quality score with the system we use. About 300 other companies are using the same software as us. We're in the top 1% of all companies using this software. There's a couple other companies all throughout the country that are as high as us in terms of response rate and quality. That's why we can make that quality guarantee. That's why we can stand behind that we're going to be consistently delightful for you. We're going to take all of your notes. We're going to put it in our software, and our techs are going to follow that. They're gonna greet you by name. They're gonna greet your pet by name.
Yeah.
This is the things we're gonna guarantee through the technology we use and through the feedback loop that we have with you to kind of get your service where it needs to be. So those are kind of the three unique positioning points that we typically use in the sale. Are you ready to buy, Drew? Is that is
No,
your
I'm smiling because what you're doing, and in another one of these podcasts that I recorded, the person's answer is like, confidence is so important in sales, and everything you're describing is whoever's in charge of that phone call for the sales. You have done such a good job of building confidence in your salesperson that your company is actually the right choice for the person calling in, and like that could make such a huge difference. If your salesperson on the phone to a potential customer just says, yes, we'll do the floors, we'll wipe down counters, we'll do like bathrooms, it's a whole different conversation rather than just saying like, no, we want to be consistently delightful. We want to be like somebody that you can always say, I'm having a delightful experience with, right? And like go through those 3 points. It's a whole different sales conversation. I mean, but even like the mindset shift, and you said this in the beginning, like they're pretty darn close to the point where you're talking to them on a phone. They have gone through enough, right? As what I like to call like an informational consumer. They are consuming information on the internet to encourage them to make a purchase somewhere. They've had to go through quite a bit to get to the point where they're agreeing to jump on a phone call with someone that they are aware is going to try to sell them, right?
right?
Like,
One of the
and it's
most
just that
dreaded things in the
mindset
world.
shift, like knowing this isn't cold anymore. This person,
Yeah.
you don't really stop thinking about we need to sell them in this moment. It's just like there is the last 5% of this race is when that phone call happens. And like putting that confidence in their brain could be a giant mindset shift for that salesperson or that CSR or whoever's answering that phone call.
Yeah, so this goes to that top of the funnel is we need actually less leads today than we did. We actually have cut our marketing budget down over time actually because we need less leads today because we're getting so much better
Yeah.
at closing leads that it's increasing our profitability because we used to be like 12% of marketing budget when we were really like, you know, grinding and, just trying to push, push, push. I think we're like 15,000 last month on 400,000. Do some math for me. What is that? Like, and there's some other costs. That's just the ad spend, divided by
Sure.
400,000. But that's only 4% ad spend plus,
Mm-hmm.
plus we have an in-house marketer. It's still probably 8-9% by the time you pay
Yeah.
salaries and other tools and creative, but we've cut it down 50%. And that's falling to the net basically because we've gotten
Yeah.
better at optimizing across all these steps. And I don't know that we can get much better, but there's always room on each one of these steps to get better. And even a 1% improvement, you stack up 1% improvements across your company, and you make a whole bunch of 1% improvements in sales,
Oh
marketing,
yeah.
operations. It's they all add up, right?
Yeah.
So
It's something I've said for a long time. Consistent micro changes end up being macro differences. A lot of times we
yeah,
get really swept up with the idea that we have to be doing these massive moves and massive changes all the time. Like, man, no, the people that do it better are the ones that are consistently making small changes that lead to macro differences in the long run. Yeah.
and that's the Team Sky analogy, and I'll just elaborate on it because people probably don't know what Team Sky is. Are you familiar with it at
No,
all?
no. Mm.
Bike racing, Tour de France. Team Sky is the name of Britain's cycling team. Great Britain hadn't won a Tour de France in, I don't know, 50 years. It's been forever, and nobody thought they could do it. So they brought in some coaches that basically took an approach of like, all right, we're going to optimize everything. They were already really good. They were only finishing like 15 minutes off lead off of a multi-stage race. That's like
Mm.
they're right in there. They've got great talent. So they started doing things like they started bringing their own beds to the hotels and like putting their mattresses on each night.
Mm.
They started washing their uniforms in only a certain kind of detergent that didn't cause any irritation to the skin. Like stuff that's just so like out there. Food, just nutrition, like dialing that in, like to the point where they were like just dominant. By the end of like 5 years, they were just dominating the Tour de France and won 3 years in a row, right? And it was like just nothing was huge. Like it was just a bunch of like little changes here and there. Of course, the technology, the bikes, the training that they were doing, all improved. But I can tell you, like the sleep they got, the
Yeah.
comfort they had in their kits, all of that stuff added up as well.
100%. Yeah. And like little things like changing the detergent, all
Yeah.
played a role in helping that go. Gotcha.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, the next question I have, um, what is maybe one thing, because obviously you're in the mergers and acquisitions world, you're in a bunch of networking groups, you are very active in like this home service space. You have a lot of conversations with different business owners. Maybe what is one thing that you think most home service businesses are missing the mark on when it comes to sales? Like, what is one thing if they maybe, could change this, it could lead to a better outcome?
I think if they
There's
would
probably a lot
define
of
this,
things, but I'm only asking for
you
one.
know,
Yeah.
I think if they would actually define their strategy and really like first off like get to the heart of like what is unique about your business, like what is your business about that's different, and there's got to be something more different other than like I just didn't want to work in the corporate grind anymore. If that's it, like
Yeah.
then you don't have a unique positioning statement. I think the tools from like Vern Harnish, like Scaling Up 2.0, there's something called the one page OPSP, one page strategic plan. Completing that is a really good exercise in marketing and sales in terms of like what does my culture stand for, right? Like because you have to kind of go through a whole bunch of exercises to kind of get to that. Like what are my core values? Like that's like what does that do with sales? It's like a ton, a
Everything.
ton,
Yeah.
right? Like what do you like? Well, because it's also like, well, what will I even do? Like we are so focused. We did that one page strategic plan again this year, and one of the things we identified, someone was like, "Here's an opportunity, Matt. We should go after commercial work again. We used to do commercial work, and that was like $500,000 a year of revenue we did when we were much smaller, right? Like we were $2 million a year, and it was 25% of our revenue. We could add 25% of revenue within 2 years." And I was like, "We're not good at commercial work. We're fundamentally bad at it. Not because we can't do it, but because it's different work.
Mm.
The level of detail that it takes to do residential versus commercial is vastly different. So when we go into commercial, we overbid it because we want to do it our way, and they want it cheap. And like they want to teams in and out because they want to keep price low, and we want to do this like detail work. And so then we're training people differently. So we have to have a different training program. So we also are better at selling to consumers because we're better at selling emotionally versus a sale that's more analytical based on, spreadsheets and projections and like, giving them a proposal. Like we're not good at that. Um, so fundamentally, what are you bad at too? Identifying what you're bad at. Like what do you and that's not likely to change or that would be like hard to change. So we're fundamentally not good at some things and recognizing that and saying, what will we do and what will we not do? Right. So we're not chasing the wrong things with sales just because we could make more money. And that's the difference between growing and scaling. Because
Mm.
growing means you just have to keep adding inputs. If we had added a commercial division, we would need to add a bunch of inputs. I need a commercial salesperson. I need a commercial training program. I need a commercial supervisor that can supervise those jobs. And those things are all additional
Yeah.
overhead now instead of integrated into the overhead of what we're doing on the residential side. So I would say, to answer your question, just more simply, is like get your strategy right. Get your strategy right. What are you even doing? What are you selling? What are you good at? And like my company is really, really good at one thing and one thing only, which is this residential cleaning, high quality residential cleaning for health and safety. Like we're cleaning people's homes to make it healthier and safer. And we're doing it in a way that's high quality and we're doing it in a way that's making their lives better by freeing up their time and knowing that they're going to have the right people in their home. They're not going to worry about the process. And that if anything isn't right, they feel good about letting us know and getting it taken care of. So that's our value proposition in an elevator pitch. If you can't do that,
Hmm.
right, you don't have a strategy. You don't have an ability to sell. So taking a day or two to kind of lock yourself in a room with 4 or 5 people that work with you and that you trust and kind of nailing that out, I think would be the first thing I would tell any company to do. And then revisit it like often, maybe once a month. Like, is this right?
Yeah.
Is this right? Is this right? It's not a static thing.
What you're describing, we would call, and this is something we do, it's a why discovery. Like finding that, like, really everybody knows what they do, right? And that goes back to what I was saying. If a salesperson answered the phone and all they want to talk about is, yeah, we'll clean your floors, we'll clean your bathrooms, we'll do this, it's a much less engaging conversation rather than what you just said. We want to offer you high quality cleaning for your home that's going to give your family back time and make your home a healthier and safer environment. Like the difference in those two sales pitches is wild, right? And we go back to we're big believers of like the Simon Sinek start with why, methodology. But if it's not just knowing that why, I think it's what you were saying too. It's being able to walk in it consistently, like not just having a poster of it on your wall that everybody might read every now and then, but it's like consistently built into your business where everybody knows this is why we exist. We know what we do, we know how we do it, but it's a deeper why does this company exist? And when you have that confidence that a salesperson can pick up, and then they will portray that confidence and that belief to the people they're selling to too.
Yeah, man, I think so everyone talks about what's your mission or whatever. We don't really, we call it our purpose or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's deeper and it's woven into that broader conversation. So our purpose is helping people live a better life, which allows us to be more than just a residential cleaning company in the future. But the truth is, like selling people cleaning, dude, like they can do that themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You're selling them peace of mind, you're selling them, right, their time, you're selling them just like the fact that their life is better because they don't have to do this thing anymore. And if you can believe in that and you can deliver on that through like your operations too, so there's a good feedback loop in the end that like they got what they were promised,
Yeah.
then all of that leads to a much easier sales process, a much more like just very comfortable because you're comfortable with what you're selling and you're not desperate to win this sale. You want to help them,
Yeah.
right? And if they choose somebody else, well, there's a good chance they'll come back. In fact, one of the things that we track is almost 25% of the customers we lose, recurring customers we lose, will come back to us within a year for some level of service, whether it's just a one time or just to come back on an ongoing basis. And winning them back is a function we do have in our marketing and sales process. We're actually you know we're actually calling them once a month for the first year, just checking in, making sure they're doing okay. Which sounds cheesy, but
I love
it's
it.
like that's a hard job. But like Ari's job is to call them and be like, hey, just checking in, making sure you're doing okay. And she knows there's going to be a lot of like, hey,
Leave me
we're good.
alone. Yeah.
we're good. But she gets a lot of them to come back. So, you know,
It's a
Ari's
good
good at
rhythm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Well, we've talked about how you look at sales, and we've talked about how confidence can play a big role in being confident in the company you work for, confident in what that company stands for. But also, let's talk about, what does training look like in your
Mm.
world? When you hire, whether it's a CSR, or you think you said Ariel, who's handling a lot of sales conversations. What does training look like for that person? And even before training, what do you look for in a person in the hiring process for a sales position that really you think like, that's not just a good salesperson, that's a great salesperson?
Yeah. So first off, we call our sales people customer experience reps instead of service or whatever, because
Yeah.
we're creating experiences, right? But that's whatever you call them is for us. We actually promote mostly from within for that role, like somebody that you know, typically, we have disc profiles on anybody that wants to be a manager, typically like that has kind of a DS disc profile. I'm not going to get into crazy into disc, but that's sort of somebody that's, I'm sorry, not DS, SC. I'm sorry. DS is that's probably the wrong thing. Uh, so an SC, so somebody that's, steady, compliant, like, that's usually a really good, like customer service focused person, like, right. They're focused on solving, things for the customer and want the world to be right. They
Mm.
don't want to, they're not. So it's not like a typical DI salesperson in a outside sales organization. Like, so we're looking for a different kind of person, because it's inside sales. They're calling in. They're looking to. It's it's different. Like, so a lot of you guys that are, maybe listening to this call, you guys are hunting and gathering, and you have to go in and, be hungry and close that sale every day. Our salespeople are hungry, they're bonus, things like that, but they're very solution driven, more so than they are just like, I got to get this sale to feed myself today.
Mm.
Right. Like so it's a different kind of person. Typically they've been a tech with us for a while, or, grew up in the company. In fact, everyone in my company today, outside of financial help, is homegrown, right? From our marketing person to, um, our salespeople. So, um, they know the business really well. They know the culture. They lived it and breathed it. And, techs are a great growing ground for our type of sales professional. And I think in a lot of the home service industry as well, because there's technical expertise that they need to know about the job to sell the
Yeah.
job. So I would first off look at your incumbent workforce to find your next salesperson. And then, as far as training goes, first off, we start off with just the technology, like very very basic. Like, we have like a whole course on just how to use all the technology you've got to use all today. Once you master that, then you can start. Then you can start taking some inbound support calls. You're not making any sales calls for a while. You can start doing support calls and helping people, make schedule adjustments and things like that. And you'll do role playing and listening for the first 2 weeks. And then after about 2 weeks, we'll allow them to start taking some sales calls. Typically, what they'll do is they won't take the hot sales calls that are coming in. They'll take, leads and things like that off the dashboard that are actually like call 3, call 4, that are kind of further
Mm.
down the life cycle, so that they can at least get some reps,
Yeah.
dropping some voicemails and getting comfortable with that. Chances are no one's even going to pick up. So they're doing some like low risk reps for a while, and then you know some calls will come in, they'll take them, and we'll coach them on them afterwards and ask them, all right, what are some opportunities that happen there? So Katie is our sales manager. She'll sit down with folks every morning, and she has a stand up every morning with the sales team, just really brief, going over yesterday's results, but also anything that she heard that would would benefit everybody, and then some one-on-one coaching with new people. We're not a huge sales organization, but everyone in my office can make a sale. Everyone is trained to make a sale. Even my operations people need to be able to pick up a call, because we're not so big that there's three people that are kind of technically on sales. Well, all right, phones are ringing off the hook. Operations can handle it. Marketing can handle it. Are they going to say all the right things or be as good? No, but they're passionate about the company, and they
Hmm.
can answer most everything that they need to know. So,
They're all at that same starting point of knowing the value of the company, so it's an easy sale.
and honestly, if your people are ingrained in your culture already and they buy into what you're doing, you're already probably better than most other sales organizations. Like they buy what you're selling, they believe in what you're doing, they've done the work, and so they can explain it in a way that is makes logical sense to the customer. Yeah, they've got to be able to have the other talents. You've already evaluated, can they pick up a call? Do they sound good on the phone? Like, you interviewed them for that, for those
Hmm.
kind of technical skills, but the soft skills, those are harder, and if they're already bought in, that gets you so much further. So for us, the fact that we're using a lot of incumbent labor um, really helps us.
I love that. Nice. Well, we've talked about a lot of things, but really, my last question before I get to the fun one we end with, um, for that person listening, the person watching this, listening to this episode, um, I like the idea of being able to give them something that they can change quickly that you think will make a difference, whether it's huge or small, like we talked about, like those micro changes can make macro differences. Um,
Mm.
what is one thing that you think maybe they're missing the mark on? But if they made this, if they switched this, if they started doing this meeting, if they started looking for this in interviews, that could help them out with that sales world.
Man, I think it's just so many things. There's so many things. We've probably already covered all the good ones.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
covered all the good ones, like, you know, strategy, like knowing that, like, but really, a having goals, right? What is your close rate supposed to be, right? So for us, our recurring close rate is supposed to be 22%, right? So having a scorecard that you're like looking at each week and being like, did we hit that? Did we not hit that? That'll move the needle. Seeing that red, seeing that yellow,
Mm.
and then basically having daily conversations about how do we move that needle up. There was years back where our close rate on recurring was maybe closer to 15%. Um, and when I say, so just to kind of give you the breakdown, I said we get about 50%, money. There's also one-time sales in our industry too. So there's recurring sales, and then there's the one-time sales. The recurring sales is really where all the real money is in
Mm.
in our industry, because somebody might spend $10,000-$15,000 over a 3-year period. So that sale that seems like a small sale, like a $210 cleaning, it's a sizable sale. So that's what we really focus on, is that high frequency recurring. So that 22% used to be like 15%. We used to spend a lot more to get like 150 leads a week, to get 100 quotes a week. Now we're happy to get 100 leads a week, to get 80 quotes a week, right? So we've increased the number of we've decreased the total number of leads, but we've increased the percentage of leads that turn into quotes. So instead of it being like 65% that we contacted, now it's like 75 or 80% that we contact. So we've fixed the funnel a little bit. But to answer your question, I guess just briefly, would be knowing those numbers, having a
Mm.
scorecard, and then like working to be continuously improving those numbers each week. If you're doing that stuff, then you're probably making a difference, on a regular basis, and changing, just making small micro tweaks each week. Um, it's kind of like getting in shape, right? Like, a scale is a good tool to kind of see where you're at, right?
Hmm.
It's not the end all be all, because there's a lot of different things in body composition, right? Like, but good starting point. You know where you started, you know where you want to be, and you're seeing little progress along the way. Like, you don't go from being, where you want to be. Like, so, I was probably 320, year ago. I'm 260 today. And the scale, some people don't like having one in their house. My wife hates them. They think she's this person that's been fit her whole life and doesn't need a scale.
Mm.
Well, if I don't have a scale, like, I literally will just like eat whatever I want. But
Sure.
if I'm accountable to that number, then I will actually behave differently. So I think there's a behavioral change that happens when you have a metric that you're holding yourself accountable to.
So give me a glimpse into what does that scorecard look like for you? Like what metrics are on there? Like paint the picture of what that looks like for people listening.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I'll kind of go through like, you know, a scorecard for us starts with like, did we hit our revenue for the week, right? And what was that, to budget if it wasn't like, budget would be, one number and, figuring out that as a percentage of revenue and then also tracking year over year growth on that same top line. Next thing we would look at would be like in the marketing section would be how many leads across versus how much ad spend. What was the cost per lead? The lead conversion rate, right? So how many leads actually
Mm-hmm.
turned into money? So 34% last week, for instance. How many quotes did we generate out of those leads? And what was the cost per quote? So that'd be like the marketing scorecard. The way that recurring revenue works in residential cleaning, we really want to know how much net revenue weekly we added. So this is not going to make a lot of sense if you're carpet cleaning and things like that, but we're shooting to add about $400 of net weekly revenue, which means if we started the week at 100,000, we wanted to end the next week we want to start the week off at 100,400, and then the next week after that 100,800. So we're stacking $400 each week. So at the end of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're up $20,000 from where we were. So if we started each week at 100, we're ending the year starting each week at 120,000. So that's kind of what we mean by like stacking that 400. But that's also before price increases. So that's one way that we increase revenue, is through the sales activity. And so that's the first thing on the sales thing is what's the net weekly revenue added? We compare it to last year. Number of recurring sales. How many recurring sales do we have? That's our number one green metric, right? Recurring close rate, total sales, total close rate, cost per acquisition. That's all on there as like the sales scorecard.
Gotcha.
We also have lost customers on there, even though that's an operations thing. It tells us how much net revenue that we added, so we want to, control for that number as best we can. We also on this scorecard have price increases, just because it is a revenue function. So we want to see, did we increase revenue through some price increases as well? And then the scorecard goes on and on into labor costs, recruiting. You're going to talk about operations with quality, schedule consistency, productivity, efficiency. So it goes on and on, but those are kind of the ones that probably matter the most to your audience.
Gotcha. No, that's super helpful. Hope everybody was taking notes on that, on what are all those scorecards. And because you're right. I mean, what we focus on expands, right? I truly believe that. And you can't focus on it sometimes if you're not writing it down. Okay. So how we've been ending these episodes is a little fun game of Would You Rather, sales
Okay.
edition. All right. So would you rather have unlimited leads but zero referrals, or have a steady stream of high quality referrals but no way to generate more leads?
Hmm.
Tons of leads but no
Yeah.
referrals, or all referrals and no
I,
leads.
I'd take the leads, to be honest. Referrals are not, there's a lot more fish in the sea than we have current customers. So, I mean, if I only had to pick one, there's a lot more fish in the sea than the current customers we have, and that would give us a lot more growth. But that would be unfortunate, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you got to pick one though. That's how the game
Yeah.
works. So, yeah, I could go either way on that one, but yeah, I see the logic. All right, well, that is a wrap for today's episode. I hope you guys took away some real actionable insights to help you close more deals in your home service business. As we always say, the best marketing world doesn't matter if there's no one there to seal the deal. Sales is that final door in that 5-door ad strategy of ours. And today's Matt was able to drop some serious wisdom on how to walk through that sales process with confidence. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you for being here and being on the show. How do people get in touch with you and learn more?
You know what? LinkedIn is I'm very active on LinkedIn. So join me on LinkedIn if you're there. It's under Matt Talks Business, but just search Matt Ricketts. There's not a whole lot of us. The other one is a composer, and he doesn't look like anything like me. So you should be able to find me on LinkedIn. Let's
Love
connect.
that. Very cool. Thanks for that. And thanks for being here today. And thanks for listening. Make sure to tune in next time.